Good morning, garden friends. My name's Dee and welcome back to my garden. So today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what I consider as the twin pillars of a successful summer garden here in Arizona, but a lot of this can apply no matter where you are. So you can see behind me, my garden's doing pretty damn good. It's looking nice, it's looking green, but there are a few things I've done to make that happen, but a few challenges that we still have to overcome, especially at this time of year. So let's get right into it. So I made a short about proper watering techniques or some tips that you could use to enable your plants to continue to thrive, especially when it's this hot out. And so I'm going to touch on a couple of those points again, because I think watering is hands down the most important thing that you can get right to still have a garden, especially out here. As I said, we have been hovering usually between 107 to I think 112 in my garden. So 110 on average is pretty dang hot for these plants. And despite them looking great and still being green and lush, there are things that we need to consider with that. So let's get into the watering first briefly. So we're going to start over here with my watermelon bed. So you can see here, I water the watermelon bed pretty well because it's produced a lot of fruit and it's continuing to grow watermelons kind of all over, but it is trellised up as opposed to allowing it to go out. And I use this kind of as a guide. The bigger it gets on top, the more I water it and allow the water to go sideways, because those roots are going to continue down into the soil and out. They're not going to continue going straight down. I continue to heavily water this because it's using a ton of resources to continue to grow. It's kind of a similar story over here. These are all cucumbers. And cucumbers are a real tricky thing, especially in the desert. The reason being, I do have one set cucumber down here, and it's a pretty good size. But cucumbers in the desert don't do particularly well. I got a pollinator right there, so that's not part of the problem, but it doesn't set a ton of fruit. The fruit that is set often becomes super bitter here because our air temperature is so high. So I don't have high hopes for that cucumber, but the fact that it's growing, it gives me joy, so I let it keep going. Now over here, this is where things are really interesting. So you see, these are all straight neck squash right here. I got 3 plants, they're all doing wonderfully. I've got my water dialed in, and they're super happy, but they are not setting any fruit. All the female flowers grow, but they don't set any fruit. Let's see this right here. And now these squash, straight neck, zucchini, they all kind of do the same thing as tomatoes. So these are my San Marzano tomatoes. And what's happening is that during the summer, the air temperature is so high that the flowers go sterile. So even if the pollinators come in and pollinate your flowers, you're not going to set fruit. So I have changed and adjusted my mindset for the needs of my garden. During the summer, I plant my garden, I plant it dense, and I water it. But my hope of getting really large, abundant crops is pretty low, because my mindset is not about production at this point. My mindset is about getting the plants to become large and stable, and I have to keep watering, keep fertilizing as a result, because the flowers are going sterile in a lot of these plants. So my production's down quite a bit right now. But the idea is that if we can get through the bulk of this hot summer, which, I mean, even the residents of Southern Arizona are all trying to get through the hot summer and just survive. When fall comes, all of these plants, because they're all so well established, are just going to go crazy producing fruit. And then I'm gonna have more squash that I know what to do with. Now on this side, it's a little different of a story. I've got all of this new growth. These are all seeds that I planted last week. Well, not this guy, that's a peanut. But all this other stuff in between, all the way down, was all just planted from seeds that I had saved. Peanut. And they are way overplanted. The reason that I planted those so densely on the other side of the yard was I wanted to see how viable those seeds were, because I had saved them from another plant. Those are actually all okra, and the humidity is higher this time of year, as well as the temperature, because the monsoon seasons do roll in and roll out. But okra seems to really thrive at this time of year. And so from seed in the ground, those have all done remarkably well. Now, the caveat there is, I don't like okra, but I have friends who do, so I'm growing it mostly for them. But the flowers are beautiful. It'll grow and look lush all along that wall, and that's another one of those things that's gonna kind of pay dividend later once fall rolls in. So we talked about the watering, and I think watering is that first pillar, right? So in my opinion, the most important thing you can do to continue to have your plants really flush out, really be green, and still have a lot of positive growth during these hot months. The second thing, you'll see it right above me, is shade. Now, our plants still need sunlight. You don't want to grow them in full shade. It is going to cause your plants to be real stringy, which means they're not going to have a lot of leaves. They're going to look really gross and you're not going to like it. So you want some shade, but not too much. And so the shade cloth above me is actually a thicker shade cloth than I would usually put on. Usually I'm shooting for like a 30% coverage shade cloth, but because I have this wide stretch all the way down to the back of the yard, the only one I could find without special ordering it was a 40% shade cloth. And I actually think that's been to my benefit this year, because we have had less rain, the sun's been really intense, and the heat has been very consistent. So where we are, I'm on the east side of my yard right now, and the sun comes up, it gets a lot of morning light, and then when the sun hits midday and starts going down in the afternoon towards the west, all of this is getting shade. It's getting diffused light, so it's not causing the plants to become real leggy. They're still producing a lot of leaves, and they're usually still pretty happy in the afternoon, although some of them do wilt a little bit, and that's just due to the intensity of the sun. But shade is great. Look for 30 or 40% shade cloth, the size you want. This has held up remarkably well. It wasn't very expensive. We've had monsoons, we've had windstorms come in, and it's not put up particularly well. I just have a couple carabiners and wire on both sides of the yard, as well as a couple poles holding up this end so I don't, clothesline myself. But shade and water, these are the most important things. And the okra on the other side of the yard, they are a little more hardy when it comes to the intense heat that we have. And they still get afternoon shade because the wall they're against is on the west side. And so after about 3 o'clock, they're in shade for the rest of the day. And for us, that means, the sun doesn't go down here currently until probably 7:30. We get a lot of really intense sunlight, which is great because you can grow anything in the desert, but you have to give it shade and you have to give it sun, otherwise it won't thrive. So another thing that gets an honorable mention is kind of mulching and ground cover. It does wonders for retaining the moisture in the soil. And over here, I have a mandarin that I planted in the early spring, and it is trying its darndest to survive. But I've planted some native plants here. So this is a ground cherry, and this is a devil's claw. And they don't mind getting beat up by the sun. They seem to be doing just fine with minimal water, but they're keeping the soil around the roots of the citrus cooler. And I did the same thing over here with the primrose. The primrose never pouts, even in direct sunlight, but it's keeping my fig tree here medium okay. It's still kind of thin, but it's alive. The lemon's doing just fine. But even native plants tend to have a hard time when it's this hot and we have had such inconsistent rain. So in the last video, you probably saw this guy. These are Peruvian apples. I have them planted in the alley. And they make these gigantic, beautiful flowers. And this guy had probably 20 flowers on it. And they usually set these fruit, but you can see they're just totally desiccated. And so this one has a couple that may survive, but you know, we live in the desert and even the cactus need a little love sometimes. So don't forget to water them on occasion too, especially if we're in a real dry spell, because everything needs a little bit of water, especially if it's been putting so much energy into producing flowers and fruit. You know, that takes an immense amount of energy from the roots. So make sure you replenish that too. So that's it for me today. It's getting kind of hot. It's about noon and it's 102. So I think I'm gonna go and get something cool to drink, because protect yourselves out there. It's hot. I don't know where you live. If you live in the desert, you understand. If you live somewhere else, it's not usually hot. This is your PSA. Drink a lot of water. But until then, keep watering your plants, keep watering yourselves, stay shaded, go plant something. Bye. If you got some value out of this video, I'd appreciate a like and subscribe for more content like this. And for any gardening questions, drop them in the comments below.